Jam is my jam.
That's right.
Well, folks, welcome to another Fumes for Friday. Fabulous event for TBAWPers. And since we've got a new person with us tonight, let you know that you're in for a treat. We get together and have a mini lesson from TBAWP TC, a chance to hear about a strategy, to try something out and explore a little bit together, to do some writing ourselves, and then to share a little bit and talk about what it'd be like to then maybe use this with our own future students. So I'm going to turn it over to Sam.
Perfect. Okay. I'm going to screen share. I'm going to cross our fingers that everything goes really well. Okay. Hold on 1 second.
Usually when I say that, I jinx it. So
I know. Well, we did a bunch of big projects at school today on technology, and all of it went well. So let's hope today is the same. Right. Sorry, let me enlarge my other screen. Okay, perfect. Okay. Oh, pause, please. Maybe.
We need some sort of filler, Mike. You need to do some stand-up.
Like just a little song, or you could just talk about your tropical island.
This is my island in the sun. Anybody? Up at Treasure Island.
I have not been to the beach for a year, and usually we go to Sanibel Island at Christmas because there's a conference every year, and we can apply and go and stay paid for by the College of Ed, but not this year time.
That's such a good beach too.
Instead, you get your laundry room.
Yeah. As long as I'm looking at this, it makes me feel better. So.
Do you use like tropical fabric softener or anything so that you can at least get maybe the smell going in there?
Definitely, just spray it a little bit.
I think you should just get some sand and throw it on the floor so your feet can be.
Well, there is sand on the floor, actually. Laundry room, you know.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I think we're up.
Good job, Mike. Filler accomplished.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Happy Thursday to everybody. Okay. So tonight we're going to talk about denotation versus connotation and words that stick in our writing. The whole premise behind this was I've always done something around Halloween, what we call dead words, which are words that are extremely overused. And that's when I teach a real big lesson on how to use a thesaurus and what is a thesaurus. It's not a dinosaur. And I wanted to take it a little bit further this year and focus on what denotation is versus what connotation is with my kiddos. So let's get into it. All right. First things first is our objectives. So I kind of put what I was hoping to get from my students. So words that have denotation and connotation, and being able to recognize that words have both of them sometimes. That words create moods, especially using the correct word choice to express the mood you want to convey. Knowledge and control of the power of our words, and then using vivid and meaningful language. So I think not only does it cover what words mean and that words have emotions, but also you could tie in there as well figurative language. So words have denotation and connotation. Denotation is the literal or dictionary definition of a word. And I just tell my students that denotation and dictionaries both start with a D, and that's the easy way to remember what denotation is. And connotation is an idea or an emotion that is evoked from the word. So I try to tell them that all words have a dictionary meaning, but some have emotions attached to them. And that's basically the big difference between words that have denotation and words that have connotation. So for me, I tend to focus a lot on the connotation first, which probably seems like the backwards way to do it. But then I go back to denotation, and that's kind of when I start my unit on how to use a thesaurus. And what is a thesaurus? I know I keep saying that, but the kids really think it's a dinosaur. So, all right, I want you to take a look at this picture. Look very closely. It's kind of one of those trick pictures. You should be able to see two different women. The one that the majority of us are going to see right away is probably the young woman. She almost looks like she's from the 1920s with a flapper headband on, her mink coat, okay? But there is a second woman in this picture as well, okay? So we'll focus on her in a minute. What I want you to do is just take 1 minute, and I want you to describe the young woman that you see. So any ways you want, just write them down for about 1 minute. Can be nouns, can be adjectives. Okay, so if you write your last one down, what are some words that you wrote down to describe this young woman? Anybody want to share?
This is Colette. I wrote beautiful, graceful, aloof, and then I had some pretty obvious, like thin, young, short hair.
Perfect, nice. Anybody else?
That word aloof is a good one. I didn't think of that. I was trying to think of other words to describe her turning away, and I had shy and coy. And I was trying to think of another one. That's the one I should have gone for. I had also her turning away made me think maybe she's shocked or startled or surprised.
Mm-hmm. Or is she maybe waiting on somebody and looking back, wanting to know where are they at? Maybe they're late. All right, so in this same picture is an old lady as well, okay? Can you all see my mouse at all on here? Okay, so basically if you take your hand and you cover the top part, you will see an older lady who almost looks like a turtle. Sorry, I just kind of gave you one, but you'll see an eye here, a nose, okay? Her other eye would be over here. This would possibly be her chin, maybe, okay? So I want you to take a minute. I know Eric's like, what? Yeah, it's hard. Like I have to cover the top of her head where her hair is. And then you can kind of see, it's like almost like a turtle. So like here is the large nose, right? The eye, which what is the other lady's ear. Could be the chin, could be the neck, however you see her. Yeah, mouth, okay? So take a minute and describe that woman. Okay, so what are some ways in which you described the older woman that you see?
She looks
Hey,
tired.
Yep.
Go ahead, Colette. Sorry.
no, I didn't. I'm ready to go second. I'm ready to hear you.
I sent an image of what she looks like in the chat. I found an approximation.
Oh, forlorn. Oh, I can't open it.
You can't open it?
No, wait, it says I have to download it.
Oh.
Because the files might be harmful to my computer.
No, it won't be harmful. You're
See.
good.
I wonder if I can show
Wait
it.
for it.
Okay.
10 minutes later, I'll get the joke.
Yeah.
Like 5 megabytes.
I definitely like that word from Jennifer, forlorn. I thought she looked maybe content. So that's interesting to me that I had such a different perspective.
I thought that she looked as if she were kind of staring off into space with, you know, kind of resigned, exhausted, tired. I guess I'm seeing what I want to see.
Mine still doesn't want to download, Eric. I don't know. So go ahead.
It's a Muppet. I just saw it. It finally came through for me. It was a Muppet.
Nice job, Eric.
It's like an old witch lady from Friday.
So that's exactly how my students described her, as an old witch, poor. They use the word hag, which is very different from the way that we described the first woman that we saw, which is the younger woman. So I do this lesson first for multiple reasons. One, because it's the buy-in. I try to do anything with buy-in. So if there's any type of trick picture, they're already, I gotta find the second lady, okay? And the other part is I want them to see that if they described the young woman using the same words that they used to describe the older woman, would it match? And a lot of times it doesn't, especially if you're thinking as a 4th and 5th grader does. They're very, black and white. And so for them, oh no, I would never say that the young lady is a hag or a witch. So it kind of gets them starting to think about the fact that some of our words do have some sort of emotional meaning. And would we want, I always bring up the fact that, oh, well, what if the older woman was somebody's grandma? Would you then call her a witch and a hag? And that makes them think, oh no, I would never call somebody's grandma a witch and a hag. So there's this thought process starting of, okay, now I'm getting introduced to words actually do have a meaning, and the context I use them in has a huge impact on how I write and how the reader understands my writing, basically. So I always kind of tell them that think carefully about your word choice so that you can convey the exact meaning you intended. So this is kind of our way to start it off. Oh, hello, there we go. Okay, today, this is gonna be today. Oh, sorry, friends. Okay, so connotation and, oops, too far. Sorry, there it is. Okay, so I start off by telling them, all right, some words have negative connotation like witch and hag, and then some of them have positive connotations, beautiful, young, rich, okay? Some of them are neutral, which means they don't really have any emotional tie to them. And this is kind of how we started off. I usually start with the word house. You live in a house. Does it have a positive or negative connotation? No, you live in a house. But if I said, Mike, you live in a shack, I'm even saying it differently, except he doesn't right now. He lives on a great island, okay? But your reader it's going to be like, there is a huge difference between a house and a shack. And so a shack to them is a negative connotation. So do you see any other words on the list that might be considered negative?
Possibly hut.
Yes, yes, yes. That to them would have a negative connotation. That it's also fun to do this one as well, because you have to start talking a little about denotation, because they're not 100% sure what a domicile is or an abode. So then we start talking about, okay, they also have multiple ways in which you can say house. Yes, so basically we do this. So can you show me ones that might have a positive connotation?
Well, palace.
Yes, very much. Wouldn't we all like to live in one?
As a Marxist, that has a really negative connotation for me. But I want to eat the rich. Home, cottage, those have very positive connotations, right?
Very much. Now, I will say though that 4th and 5th graders may not agree with you. They don't think of cottage as something as positive, because to them, their age is always the bigger the better, right? So for them, there was a very long discussion about why a cottage could be positive and why a cottage could be negative. We had to end up defining a couple of them, because domicile and quarters are neutral terms for a house. So, because when we did the list together in class, they were like, oh, well, only house is neutral. Once we defined them, I think then they began to understand that there are some words that don't actually have any type of meaning. It's almost like just a blank word, you know? So again, depending on the story you want to write, then you choose what word you're going to say. If I say that Jenny lives in a palace versus Jenny living in a shack, that also starts to tell me about what type of character she is as well. So, all right. So connotation and the mood it conveys. Mood in words means that certain words have an emotional feeling attached to them. These can be nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and interjections, which I love, can all convey moods. So I want you to rewrite the following paragraphs. So let's look at it first, and you're going to change its mood. And I want you to realize the words that are underlined are the words that can carry, a heavy mood. So the story says, the fierce sun dipped behind some dark clouds, casting a pall over the family at the beach. The pesky seagulls disappeared behind the sand dunes, leaving the children feeling abandoned. Little Timmy's kite crashed to the ground as the blustery wind suddenly died. The outing at the lonely beach was over. Does not sound like a fun day at the beach, which we start the conversation. What mood is this? Is this a good mood? Is it a bad mood? Is it a boring mood? Obviously, this is trying to convey a very bad day at the beach, one we would not want to experience in our own world. So you kind of can do this one of two ways, and I'll show you how my students did it. They took each of the underlined words and and basically almost did the opposite, and then rewrote the story. Or you can just rewrite the story, changing the underlined words to a different connotation. So I just usually tell my kids, go to the opposite. If this is a bad day at the beach, change the connotation and make it a great day at the beach. So I'm gonna show you what they came up with. There we go, okay. These are 3 different 5th graders from 3 different classes that I teach. So you might notice some are similar and some are different. But they basically listed all of the underlined words that had this heavy and dark, gloomy connotation, and then formed a new way to use a word using a different connotation. So the first word was fierce. You have warm, bright, and beaming. Dark, they all chose white. Casting, creating, releasing, creating as well. Paul, they put enlightenment, joy, excitement. Pesky, hungry, adventurous, calm. Disappeared, they flew away, they appeared, which was good, I guess. Abandoned, they were relieved, they were excited, they were welcomed, crashed to the ground, soared higher into the sky, soared above the clouds. I love their spelling, by the way. Soared on the last one. Blustery was a good one because we had to, again, look at the denotation of the word because sometimes, you know, they didn't really understand what blustery meant. So peaceful, relaxing, died for them. It's very black and white again. So awakened, continued, began, and then lonely became serene, beautiful, and comforting. So I'm going to go back. And you can do like my students did and just make a list and try to change the connotation of each of the words. Or you could just rewrite the story, changing the underlying words, but make sure we're really changing the connotation of the story. Okay, so I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. If you need more time after 5 minutes, we can revisit the clock. So 5 minutes. And if you want to turn your camera off, feel free, whatever makes you most comfortable, your choice. And I'm going to start the timer now. if you'll come back to me when you are finished up with your lessons. Does anybody need any more time? Okay. Does anybody want to share their news story with a different connotation? Oh, thanks, Eric. Can I read it for you, Eric? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Or do you want to read it?
No, go for it.
Okay. The timid sun dipped behind some sheer clouds, giving a reprieve to the family at the beach. The watchful seagulls swooped behind the sand dunes, leaving the children feeling free. Little Timmy's kite drifted lazily on its string as the cooling wind suddenly danced. The outing at the welcoming beach was over. Nice job, Eric. And I like that because that's a personification in there. The cooling wind suddenly danced. Yeah, nice work. Does anybody else want to share?
I'll go.
Thanks, Jenny.
Mine's not as fancy as Eric's. He's high school. He uses fancy words. Let's see. I have the bright sun dipped behind some fluffy clouds, creating soft shadows over the family at the beach. The demanding seagulls zipped behind the sand dunes, leaving the children feeling relieved. Little Timmy's kite drifted up to the sky as the breeze suddenly swelled up. The outing at the relaxing beach was over, or was it?
Very nice, Jenny. And then it becomes this story right here. Thanks, Jenny. And don't sell yourself short.
I was intimidated by his cooling wind suddenly dancing.
Apparently that's personification.
I'll share.
Thanks, Colette.
The life-giving sun dipped behind some billowy clouds, providing shade over the family at the beach. The aerobatic seagulls soared behind the sand dunes, leaving the children feeling awed. Little Timmy's kite rose high in the sky. Oh my God, I can't read my own handwriting. High in the sky as the gentle wind suddenly surged. The outing at the beautiful beach was over.
Nice. I like aerobatic. That was great.
Okay, I'm the only one that hasn't gone, so.
No pressure, Mike. No pressure.
But I feel like I should turn off my background. No. Or just like turn down the. Wouldn't it be cool if I could turn down the light? You know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The watery sun slipped behind the clouds, causing shadows to appear and disappear on the sand around the family. A lone seagull screamed and then fell silent. At the top of a sand dune, little Timmy shivered. His kite, forgotten on the breeze, drifted into the pounding surf. I took a few liberties. Guess who's been watching Stephen King this week?
But I think that's great because I think too often our students feel super boxed in. And I think this kind of allows them to step a little bit outside of the box and almost rewrite the story with their own connotation. So, you know, very nice. Okay. So, oops. Yeah, love it. And okay, too far. Nope, sorry. Oh my Jesus today. Okay, so using my goodness. It must be 4 days before school's out. Anybody else feel that way? Okay, good. Okay. Next, we're going to use denotation and connotation for excellent word choice. So, yes, it's very punny that I chose cacti as my theme, but it's actually my classroom theme this year as well. So there was a method behind my madness, and that I wanted them to find words that would really stick with them for the rest of the year and hopefully into their rest of their education. So we're going to do two things. Step one, and I'll come back to this slide. is you are going to write a story. It can be about today. It could be about a really bad day. It could be about a good day. It could be about a really boring day. Maybe you sat in a PLC that was like watching paint dry. Your call. I want to make sure that you write using a distinct mood and choose words that are going to convey that mood specifically. And then we're going to rewrite that story using a different connotation. So I'm going to show you a couple of student examples. These are the same fifth graders from our other one. The top one is what we're going to focus on now. We'll focus on the second one when we get to step number 3. So I'm not going to read all of them, so I'll take the one on the left. It's actually my son's. It says, as I was about to, no, that's right. That's not my son's. That's my other one. That's my son's friend. As I was about to pitch in the first game of the day, I threw it right down the middle. The umpire called it a ball, and I didn't worry about it. I threw the same pitch, and he hit a home run. I felt bad, and I had to pitch the whole game. I had thrown 30 pitches with 7 runs gone. I had no hope to turn it around. We lost our first game and went home negative. So you can tell what the mood was in that story. He actually plays travel baseball, so this could have actually been a real story. Anyways, so that's one. Funny enough, the third one is also about baseball, but it's from she's a sister and had to go watch baseball, and it's actually a t-ball game, which if you've ever seen a t-ball game, those can go one of 2 ways. So I'm going to give you, we'll start with 5 minutes. If we need to come back and give more, we can definitely do more. I just want you to write a story about anything that you choose. Just make sure it conveys a specific mood throughout. Okay, questions? Eric, you good? Okay, all right, 5 minutes. We'll start now. Okay, if you guys would wrap up your last thought or sentence. Sorry. Okay. Does anyone want to share their original story that they wrote before we take it apart?
Not get to rewrite one yet. Were we supposed to already do that?
Nope.
Okay,
Just
good.
write a story. That's all. Nothing. Just basic story.
I can share if you want me to.
Thanks, Eric.
I'll put it in the chat and read it.
Okay.
All right. With the night had come a new bitterness to the cold. Winter had come early that year and clung hard like the icicles on the eaves that seemed to grow every day longer and thicker. Inside the old farmhouse, the family of 8 was huddled around the Franklin stove, which heated the room thoroughly, radiating waves of comfort. The only noise was the crackling of that fire, the creak of Ma's rocking chair, and the occasional clearing of Pa's throat. The younger 4 children were already up in their loft, though they weren't yet asleep, listening instead to the silence and wondering if tomorrow it would be clear enough to at least venture out. Pa had said that the storm was coming in, though, which meant another day trapped in the cabin with nothing but the Bible and sewing to keep them occupied. At worst, it meant they might even spend Christmas Day in the confines of the farmhouse.
Very nice, Eric. Nice. Well, I can tell the mood in that one.
Mission accomplished.
Yes, awesome. Anyone want to follow Eric?
That captures the feeling of the last year perfectly. Quarantine.
I'll go. Again, his is just way better, but I got to start volunteering faster.
Stop it, Jen. Jesus.
I'm just around 4th graders all the time. I'm writing like them. The noise in the room rose to a deafening roar. Students were fighting with each other and they were unhappy. They still had a math lesson to do. Suddenly the door burst open and the principal walked in with 2 parents who had come to speak to a couple of misbehaving students. The students rose slowly and dragged their feet to the door. The door slammed shut and the room felt like it was frozen. Everyone opened their math books and began working.
Ooh, nice. Man,
way to show me up, Jen. That was awesome.
I was just going to say, I think that perfectly captured the mood in my classroom today.
That's been the mood of my classroom for like the last 4 months. So yeah.
Such a true reaction moment. I love it. I could really imagine that. I feel like that's happened to everyone. It's great.
And I think, are you the one being called or not being called?
I'll go next. I feel like I went a totally different road from everyone else. All right, so I woke up at 3 a.m. and immediately began worrying about the day ahead. Had I chosen the right outfit? Had I brushed up on my educational theory enough? Was I really going to be considered, or was I just being used to meet a quota? Would I be able to wake up on time and be alert during my full day of interviews and observations if I continued to fret rather than sleep? And finally, why had I ever even gotten myself into this mess in the first place?
That sums up 5 out of my 7 mornings. Monday through Friday.
All right, so I would, yeah, okay. So can a picture tell a story, Dad? My daughter asks me. I look up from my book to where she sits at her desk painting. I smile, thinking of the black and white family photo of my grandfather with his new wife and her parents. He stood in shirt sleeves, the sea breeze lifting his hair, a familiar arm around her waist, while his father-in-law rested a light hand on his shoulder.
Nice. Nice. That sounds like a good start to your story, Mike. Okay, so here's step 2. I want you to go in the story you just shared with me, and I want you to underline the words that you believe hold a heavy mood. Not necessarily negative, but just holds a heavy mood to it. Think about the one about the beach. So take a couple, maybe a minute or so to identify what are those words you chose that hold a heavy emotional meaning. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to go to my student ones. Oh, maybe. There we go. Okay, so I shared with you his first one about his obviously not successful day at baseball. So here's how he rewrote his story. And you can see he did the same thing. He underlined the ones that had kind of that negative connotation to it. As I was about to pitch in the first game of the day in the cool weather, I threw it right down the middle and the ball was a strike. I didn't worry about it then. I threw the same pitch and I got another kid out. I felt great. I had to pitch the whole game. I had thrown 30 pitches with 0 runs. I had a lot of hope to turn it around. We won our first game and we went home positive. So completely different story. And all he did was change the connotation of 7 or 8 words or phrases in his story. So I'm going to give you another 5 minutes to change the connotation in your original story to a different mood. It doesn't necessarily have to go from sad to happy. It just needs to be a different mood. Okay, I'll see you in 5 minutes. You can just return to me when you're ready. Okay, so I'm just gonna share the slide that has my student samples on there. So you can read those too if you want, but would anybody like to share their different story? Jenny, that's you. You should go first, Jenny.
My shit, I was trying to scribble in my last sentence. It was hard. Well, that's just my personality in general, but it's hard being positive. So, I mean, I you know, like my husband calls me Debbie Downer, but like, so it was easy coming up with like the bad, but trying to shift that over. So then I was like thinking, what would my classroom be like if I could have it the way I wanted it? So I had to kind of add in some other words and things here and there. I couldn't really fit it into the mold, so I had to make a little adjustments. The soft lull in the room was relaxing. Students were working cooperatively with each other on a social studies project. They were looking forward to the math lesson that was coming up. Quietly, the door swung open and the principal walked in with two parents who had come to present an award to a couple of deserving students. The students rose quickly and zipped over to the door. The door clicked quietly closed and the room was abuzz with excitement. Everyone opened their math books, but with curiosity about what was going on.
Nice, Jenny.
Thank you. It was a struggle bus being positive.
I like it though. That's like the dream classroom.
I love how excited they are about math.
Yeah.
Completely believable.
Wouldn't that be nice? It's probably why none of us teach math.
I'm self-contained, so I get to do it all.
Oh.
Yeah, me too.
That's why I was using my imagination for what I would like it to be like.
I think it was great. Definite change in mood. So, thanks.
I'll go next.
Thanks, Colette.
I woke up at 3 a.m. and immediately began thinking about the day ahead. Had I chosen the right outfit? Had I brushed up on my educational theory enough? Amazed that I really was being considered, not just being used to meet a quota. I thought I will wake up on time and be alert during my full day of interviews and observations. I reminded myself of my purpose and why I applied for the job before I shut my eyes again.
Very nice. Nice, Colette. Remind me of that every morning when I get up.
Well, it's my classroom. We're working on mindset and other words that so to me, this is what I would use with my class. Yes. Like, what is the story we're telling ourselves and how can we use our words to shift that story we tell ourselves?
I think that's a fantastic idea. Fantastic. Uh-oh, is this you?
I'm going next so that Eric can tell us what happened.
Y'all gotta stop on the expectations here.
All right, so can a picture tell a story, Dad? My daughter asked me. I stare through her scribbling at her desk. I frown, thinking of the black and white family photo of my grandfather with his new wife and her parents. He stood arms bare, the sea breeze whipping his hair, protectively encircling her waist, while his father-in-law gripped his shoulder.
Mhm.
Nice.
I'm glad that I'm glad I put it in the chat because I did the underlining and then I started changing everything. I didn't like copy and paste and so I had like totally I would have just lost the first version. Then I was like, oh, it's right here. I'll just, I can't save it. So.
Nice. Different family perspective.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, here you go. All right, with the night had come a new layer to the snowstorm. Winter had come early that year and pressed on hard like the icicles on the eaves that seemed to grow every day longer and thicker. Inside the old farmhouse, the family of 8 basked round the Franklin stove, which heated the room thoroughly, radiating waves of comfort. The only noise was the ambient crackling of that fire, the creak of Ma's rocking chair, and the scratching of Pa's knife on the wood block he was carving. The younger 4 children were already up in their loft, though they weren't yet asleep, listening instead to the peaceful maybe there was supposed to be another word there, and dreaming of tomorrow when it would be clear enough to venture out. Pa had said that the storm was coming in, though, which might mean they'd spend the day together in the cabin, reading from the Bible, the girls learning to sew and the boys to whittle. Come wind or snow, they knew they would get to spend Christmas Day in the warmth of the farmhouse.
Nice. Yeah. I would stay with them in that story, not necessarily the first one. So I think the big takeaway is that small little things can change your story in such a humongous way. And I think when our students can see it, it really becomes impactful for them. And it's something maybe they didn't realize they could actually even do just by changing, 7-10 phrases within their sentence. You can tell, obviously, from this, we go back to these stories very often, one to talk a lot more about connotation, but I also will tie in some of my grammar lessons in here. So you might see some commas in here in the second one, but maybe not commas in the first ones. And then the next thing I do is, so each kid gets a word that's very, very overused. And because I have 4th and 5th grade, they have completely different words. So my 4th graders will get, like say and nice and good and bad. And then my 5th graders will get a little bit higher level than that. And they then learn what is a thesaurus, and then how do we use a thesaurus to our advantage. And then we go into denotation and the fact that a thesaurus contains multiple meanings, and we want to make sure we're choosing the meaning that we want to convey within our story. So this is my son's, and he received the word poor. And these are the words that he found in the thesaurus to convey his meaning of the word poor. And then what the students did was, in red, any word that they felt had a negative connotation, they outlined it in red. Anything that was neutral, they left the way it was. And then anything they thought had a positive connotation, they went over in blue. Now this obviously doesn't have any blue because the word poor itself has a negative connotation. So we talked a lot about how some words, you can look up denotations and definitions for that word, but most of the time those words are also going to have that same connotation. And then I just put these up on a bulletin board so that they wouldn't continue to use the same words over and over again, that they could go look at the bulletin board and pick a better word that fit the connotation they wanted to portray in their story. So, and that's all I've got for you tonight. Hopefully this will stick with you. Sorry, I just had to add that in there.
That was great. Thank you, Sam.
you. I loved that. I loved that so much. And I love the idea of you tying in the grammar as well. I mean, I was thinking about, how just changing some of the punctuation and phrasing could so affect the mood of the story, and how powerful that could be too. So that was so So nice. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks. Yes, we've actually revisited them recently because we did a big unit on figurative language and poetry. So we kind of went back to some of those and said, okay, these are great. Well, could we add some figurative language in them as well to make them better? So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Sam. I think that this is a great exercise for any level.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think it would be really cool to see what high school kids could definitely produce. You know what I mean? I sometimes think like Jenny does, where we tend to teach 4th and 5th grade or 4th grade most of the day. So we tend to use that vocabulary most of the day. So we tend to write that way. Let me just say that thesaurus is also one of my best friends. So it'll be really cool to see what your kids could produce. You know what I mean? For sure.
This was so cool. It's such a smart way of getting it across to them. Like, I liked how you started with the image.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that was like really powerful to get them to see that there's two ways to see something, and then getting into the writing part.
Yeah. Yes. And I think if you can relate it to them, you know, when I point out the fact that what if that old woman was a grandma, would you call her the things you called that woman? And they were like, oh no. Okay, well then it has to be portrayed that way within your writing as well. So yeah, they loved the picture.
And that picture and what Jenny said reminds me again of like that whole, what I was thinking about, the whole, how much power words have over our thoughts and our ideas about the whole world, including ourselves, and how can we change that in a way that's helping us process things in a more positive way, seeing ourselves in a more positive way, and then like seeing other people in a more positive way too.
Very much so. Very much. Yes, because when I actually did it with my 4th and 5th graders, the first story I had them write was a negative story. I don't know if you saw it in all 3, but I basically said, I just want you to write about a really bad day. Just, it could be a really bad day, it could be a really boring day. And that was the third example, was she wrote about the time she had to watch her brother's T-ball game and she was bored out of her mind. You know what I mean? Another student wrote about going to a theme park and waiting in line for a ride for 3 hours, which wasn't true, but they just made it, they made it sound that way. So changing it from negative to positive was somewhat difficult for some of them because, you know, it's not necessary, and vice versa. Writing a negative story first is difficult for your kids that see everything in a positive way. So.
I love it. I think there's it's such a great, like Eric said, you know, great exercise for any level, because I think you get very quickly into realizing like how much of a difference one word or one image can make, you know, to the whole mood, and really having fun with that. And it's just such a great gateway to so many other things, you know, just thinking about all the things you could do. And like, I liked your example at the end there, because it made me think about how like we use words that have different connotations for all different reasons. Like, you know, there are times when people want to describe you know, the poor as just being underprivileged or needy, you know, to kind of like euphemistic, or I don't know, there's so many different kind of purposes and assumptions that are revealed by beginning with this. So it's really, really cool.
Oh yeah, that's a great connection to talk about euphemism. I mean, I was just thinking about how I could use this with creative writing classes, but obviously if I was thinking about argumentative writing, right? And that more mainstream English classroom writing, to think about, to get them thinking about word choice is often not at the top of their list, right? And what word choice do they need to use to do justice to the topic?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's huge. And I think it helps them to not feel as boxed in or formulaic, you know, as well. Mm-hmm.
Well, sure, but you don't want to teach them to manipulate language in a way to, you know, you want to talk about how do you use the right words, right, and evaluate the language that they're using, and particularly where you get students who are perhaps not evaluating their own opinions and writing about some things, right, and if you can get them to think about some of the terms they're using and are those the right terms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you know, what your next steps with this as a writer or as a teacher might be, and that might be a good note for us to end on tonight. So if everyone wants to just take a minute to think about, you know, what will you do with this wonderful, flexible lesson in your own writing or in your teaching?
So I like the whole like shades of meanings idea and precise word choice and language. But again, I'm still thinking a lot about the social emotional aspect that can be gleaned from this. As I guess just because I'm wrapping up the school year and I've got a few more days. And so I guess I'm just kind of like, we're writing animal fantasies right now. And so we could apply this for sure. We could definitely put some, I could use this lesson for them to go back and use in their setting or to describe some action or something. But I'm definitely leaning towards the evaluating our thoughts and what we're saying about ourselves and about others, and that aspect of it, and maybe the shades of meaning is, I think, where I would go right now, just because I have so few days left. And in my school, fourth grade is the last grade in elementary school, so we're having a lot of anxiety right now. But I think that if I were teaching this at a different point in the school year, I might have, you know, I might use it multiple times for many different reasons or purposes.
I really appreciate that, because I did not even think about the social emotional aspect of it until you brought it up. And what an amazing way to start a school year, by immediately starting with positivity and maintaining that throughout. But not only as kids, but even as teachers and adults. You know what I mean? We start off super like, oh, this year's going to be amazing. And then by December, you know, you're burnt out.
I would also like to put some focus on this into my own writing. Just, I mean, I feel like I use the thesaurus, I guess, maybe at school with kids, but not so much for myself. And, you know, maybe just kind of like looking at some of my own writing pieces and thinking about, you know, did I really convey mood well? Like, could I maybe convey it a little better, use some better word choice myself? I preach it. I need to practice it a little more.
I like that idea and potentially applying this to revision, because I think you could do this, the basic write a paragraph with one mood and then rewrite it with another as sort of a warm-up activity. And then say, now go to your actual writing, your actual prose, and look for those places where you can tweak some word choice to make some things align better with the mood that you're going for. And I think the challenge there, and that was sort of the challenge I gave myself, was change as little as possible, right? So you can go for those subtle moves in language that can tilt things more strongly in the direction that you're trying to go for.
I like that. Subtle things with a big impact.
I tipped my hand already, and you know, this got me thinking more about teaching criticality. You know, about thinking about like why we're choosing to describe something in a particular way, particularly with regard to, you know, like you said it well, Eric, like doing justice to the person or the topic or the idea, you know, and so that really got me thinking about that tonight. Wonderful. Thank you, Sam, and thank you all for being here. And so we will continue Fumes for Friday, you know, into the summer under a new guise. And so if you're around in 2 weeks and you'd like to continue to join us and do some writing and sharing, hope you will. And look forward to the next time.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.